It's nearly impossible to find anyone born between the 60s and 2000s who doesn't know Toys R Us. Founded in 1957, this retail giant quickly became a childhood staple. The jingle alone can make any adult flash back to their childhood.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play.
While the company's mascot, Jeffrey the giraffe, remains an iconic symbol of toy store magic. Memories of walking through the store's doors and seeing aisles packed with every toy imaginable. For children, it was like Christmas every time they stepped inside. And for parents, it was a one-stop shop. For decades, Toys R Us dominated the toy industry, becoming one of the largest specialty retailers in the world. At its peak in the 1990s, Toys R Us accounted for nearly 25% of the global toy market. But behind the scenes, Toys R Us was struggling. Once a juggernaut with over 1,500 stores worldwide and annual revenues exceeding $11 billion, the company declared bankruptcy in 2017 and liquidated all of its U.S. operations in 2018. However, the story doesn't end there. Despite its dramatic fall, Toys R Us has seen multiple revival attempts, speaking to the enduring power of its brand and the nostalgia it evokes. So, how did we get here? From its meteoric rise to its sudden collapse and the subsequent efforts to breathe new life into this beloved brand, stick around as we cover the fascinating journey of Toys R Us. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to High Hope. You're doing great things for this channel, and we enjoy having you here. Now, let's get to the video. In 1923, a child named Charles Lazarus was born in Washington, D.C., setting the stage for a historic transformation in the toy-selling industry. After returning from World War II, Charles had a vision of starting his own business. Everyone I talked to said they were going to go home, get married, have children, and live the American dream, he told Entrepreneur in 2008. Charles took this knowledge and opened a store in his father's bicycle repair shop in 1948. Instead of selling bikes, he focused on baby items like cribs, carriages, strollers, and high chairs. He named the store Children's Bargain Town. Business was good, but Charles quickly noticed a problem. Customers rarely returned to buy more baby furniture for their second or third child. He also observed that customers frequently asked about toys. In response, he began experimenting with adding toys to his store in the early 1950s, realizing that toys had more repeat sales potential than furniture. He eventually phased out baby furniture and went all in on selling toys. In 1957, Charles opened the first Toys R Us, stocking it wall-to-wall with toys galore. Unlike other toy stores of the time, which were mostly small and family-run with limited product lines, Lazarus's store was expansive. His timing was fortuitous. The 1950s and 60s introduced some of the most iconic toys of all time, from Mr. Potato Head to the Easy Bake Oven to Barbie, all of which he could stock in his store. As toy sales grew, Charles developed relationships with toy manufacturers, allowing him to buy toys cheaper than his competitors. This gave Toys R Us the title of category killer, a company so dominant that it drives all of its competition out of business. Unable to keep up with the demand of an all-year-round toy store, many mom-and-pop toy stores had to close shop. By 1965, Charles owned 5 Toys R Us stores. Lazarus was far from done building his toy empire. In 1966, he sold control of the company to Interstate Department Stores, Inc. for $7.5 million to raise capital for expansion. This move gave Lazarus the funds he needed to begin rapidly growing the business. By the 1970s, Toys R Us had started using national TV advertising to gain even more exposure. In 1965, they introduced Dr. G. Raff, later renamed Jeffrey, a lovable giraffe who became the face of the brand. Jeffrey began appearing in TV commercials in 1973, creating a friendly image that appealed to children. In the early 1980s, Toys R Us hit another home run with the creation of the catchy jingle, "I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid." Even the backward R in the logo had significance. It was meant to mimic a child's writing, emphasizing the playful nature of the store. This clever design choice became not just a logo, but a symbol of childhood for generations of consumers. The company's growth was phenomenal. By 1978, Toys R Us was the largest toy retailer in the country, with 182 stores generating $1 billion in sales. In 1983 alone, they opened 236 new stores. By the mid-1980s, Toys R Us accounted for a quarter of all toy sales in the United States, and by 1990, the company had over 1,300 stores worldwide. One of Lazarus's key strategies was loss leader pricing. Toys R Us would offer popular toys at, or even below wholesale prices to attract shoppers. These discounted items were strategically mixed with higher-priced merchandise throughout the store. This approach helped Toys R Us become the go-to destination for multiple generations of children and parents. The impact of Toys R Us on consumer culture was significant. It changed children's expectations of toy stores, offering an unparalleled selection under one roof. For many kids, a trip to Toys R Us became an exciting event in itself, transforming toy shopping from a simple errand into an adventure. Throughout the 80s and early 90s, Toys R Us was the king of the mountain, but underneath the castle, the landscape was starting to shift. Mass merchants like Target and Walmart began to see how lucrative toys were and decided to expand their toy selection. Equipped with top-of-the-line supply chains, these stores were able to undercut Toys R Us on pricing by using loss leaders on their hottest toys, just as Toys R Us had done to mom-and-pop stores. These mega retailers quickly captured toy market share. As the new millennium dawned, these big box stores became an even bigger thorn in Toys R Us's side. Their diverse product lines allowed them to sell toys at razor-thin margins, or even at a loss to drive foot traffic. This intense competition caused Toys R Us's profits to stagnate. From 2000 to 2004, net earnings hovered between $85 million and $105 million, a far cry from their heyday. Toys R Us was also getting squeezed by the online shopping market. Stores like KB Toys offered a more focused selection than the superstore approach of Toys R Us. By the late 1990s, cracks were starting to show. Overall, toy sales dropped from 25% in 1990 to 18% in 1997, and operating margins fell from over 12% to 8%, cutting into their profits. The writing was on the wall, and in 1998, Toys R Us was forced to make some tough calls. They launched a major restructuring plan, closing 90 underperforming stores and laying off 3,000 employees. They even redesigned their remaining stores, hoping to lure back customers with a better shopping experience. But this was just a band-aid on a growing problem. Minor efforts were made to revamp stores and improve the online shopping experience, but the magic was gone. Shoppers were increasingly bored by the selection and store experience. As if these challenges weren't enough, Toys R Us faced a game-changing move in 2005. A group of private equity firms swooped in, buying out the company for a whopping $6.6 billion. This leveraged buyout saddled Toys R Us with a mountain of debt, about $5 billion worth. Now, instead of focusing on competing with the likes of Walmart and Amazon, Toys R Us found itself stuck paying off massive interest bills, sometimes as high as $400 million a year. This financial straitjacket couldn't have come at a worse time. Just as Toys R Us needed to pour money into updating its stores and beefing up its online presence, it was forced to pinch pennies to keep up with debt payments. The once mighty toy retailer found itself in a losing battle, unable to slash prices like its competitors or invest in the future. Despite the debt anchor, Toys R Us remained the largest dedicated toy retailer in the US, with over 800 stores and $11 billion in annual sales. However, profits continued to be elusive. From 2006 to 2013, Toys R Us had just one profitable year. This leveraged buyout, which seemed like a smart business move at the time, turned out to be the start of a long, painful slide for Toys R Us, eventually leading to its bankruptcy in 2017. It was a stark reminder that even the biggest players can fall if they can't adapt to the changing retail landscape. Toys R Us's long struggle finally came to a head in September 2017. Crushed under the weight of its massive debt and unable to compete effectively in the changing retail landscape, the company filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy protection. This move was initially seen as a chance for the toy giant to restructure its debt and emerge stronger. At first, there was hope. The company secured $3.1 billion in bankruptcy financing, aiming to stabilize its business and revamp its stores for the crucial holiday season. Toys R Us management assured suppliers and customers that stores would operate as usual during this process. However, the 2017 holiday season proved disastrous. Sales were far below expectations, with many customers avoiding the retailer due to concerns about its future. This poor performance spooked both investors and suppliers, many of whom tightened credit terms or demanded cash on delivery for products. By January 2018, it became clear that the reorganization plan was failing. Unable to meet the terms of its bankruptcy loan and facing a severe liquidity crisis, Toys R Us announced plans to close all 735 of its U.S. stores in March 2018. This decision affected around 33,000 employees and sent shockwaves through the toy industry. The liquidation process was rapid and emotional. Longtime customers flocked to stores for final purchases, often sharing memories of childhood visits. By June 29, 2018, Toys R Us closed its last U.S. stores, marking the end of an era in American retail. The closure had far-reaching effects. Toy manufacturers like Hasbro and Mattel saw significant drops in sales and stock prices. Many small toy companies that relied heavily on Toys R Us struggled to find new retail channels. The $11 billion in annual toy sales Toys R Us generated had to be absorbed by other retailers, leading to increased competition in the toy market. Shopping malls across the country were left with large vacant spaces, further contributing to the ongoing retail apocalypse. After its dramatic fall in 2018, Toys R Us has seen several attempts at resurrection. The brand's intellectual property was initially acquired by True Kids, who partnered with BATA to open 2 small-format experiential stores in 2019. However, these stores fell victim to the COVID-19 pandemic and closed by early 2021. The tide began to turn when WHP Global acquired a controlling stake in the brand in March 2021, followed by a game-changing partnership with Macy's. This deal saw Toys R Us shop-in-shops open in Macy's department stores across the U.S., breathing new life into the beloved brand. Today, Toys R Us exists in a much different form than its heyday. While it no longer operates as an independent, large-scale retailer in the U.S., the brand maintains a presence through its Macy's partnership, a flagship store in New Jersey's American Dream Mall, and an online presence that redirects to Macy's toy section. Internationally, Toys R Us stores continue to operate in various markets under different ownership structures. The once mighty toy retailer now focuses on leveraging its name recognition through partnerships and licensing deals, aiming to keep the brand relevant in a drastically changed retail landscape. While it may never reclaim its former retail empire, Toys R Us has shown resilience, tapping into nostalgia and adapting to new market realities to keep its legacy alive. The fall of Toys R Us wasn't due to a single factor, but rather a perfect storm of challenges that overwhelmed the once mighty retailer. First and foremost, the massive debt from the 2005 leveraged buyout crippled the company's ability to adapt and compete in a rapidly changing market. This financial burden left Toys R Us struggling to invest in necessary improvements to its stores and online presence. Meanwhile, big box retailers like Walmart and Target, along with e-commerce giant Amazon, were eating away at Toys R Us's market share. These competitors could offer lower prices and greater convenience, leaving Toys R Us struggling to differentiate itself. The company's slow adaptation to online shopping further eroded its competitive edge in an increasingly digital marketplace. But there's another crucial factor that often goes unmentioned: the changing nature of play itself. Video games have been steadily taking over the toy market, dramatically altering children's play patterns and parents' buying habits. As kids increasingly turned to consoles, smartphones, and tablets for entertainment, traditional toys began to lose their allure. This shift wasn't just about competition from other retailers. It was about competition for children's attention and parents' wallets. Toys R Us, with its vast aisles of action figures, board games, and stuffed animals, found itself selling products that were gradually losing relevance in a digital age. While the company did sell video games, it couldn't compete with specialized electronics retailers or the convenience of digital downloads. This fundamental change in the toy industry caught Toys R Us flat-footed, further complicating its already challenging position. In the end, the combination of crippling debt, fierce retail competition, a rapidly evolving digital marketplace, and the shifting landscape of children's play proved too much for Toys R Us to overcome. The fall of this retail giant serves as a stark reminder of the need for businesses to not only adapt to changing market conditions, but also to anticipate and respond to fundamental shifts in consumer behavior and preferences. Speaking of corporate chaos, our next video dives into another shocking tale of a corporate giant's demise. We'll explore one of the most infamous scandals in business history, where a major energy company's collapse shook the financial world to its core. From deceptive accounting practices to widespread fraud, this story has it all. It's a complex web of corporate greed, manipulation, and eventual downfall that changed the face of business regulation. From toys to energy trading, these stories show us the high stakes and harsh realities of the business world.